Good evening. Thanks, Maxime, for inviting me, and Thomas. The good thing about being the last on a panel like this is that nobody is going to blame you if it's short, because my presentation is going to be extremely short. I thought I had 5 minutes, so it's going to be 4.5. Everything has been said, so I didn't have to, I won't have to go through the whole introduction of what is crowdfunding and everything. You learned everything about your competitors, which is good because you can keep for yourself things that you were maybe planning to say. And you can focus on points where you disagree with the rest of the panel and make your point. So I'll introduce you to this initiative that is called Science Booster. It's a personal initiative of myself and a friend of mine, and to give it a shape as quickly as possible, we partnered with this the biggest Swiss crowdfunding platform. You heard of it before, maybe it's called We Make It. And I'm not going to tell you about what is crowdfunding, but I'll tell you about what is crowdfunded. And I think, if you know crowdfunding, you'll know that there's a lot that is done in the creative industry. We Make It itself is very much focused on arts, culture, and somehow social entrepreneurship, not that much on technology and anything like Kickstarter. But technology is a big part of it. You have books, graphic novels, theater, photography project, you name it. But not so much science. And as a scientist, I've done quite a few years of research. I felt maybe that could be an opportunity. And when I say I felt, that was 3 years ago when we started discussing this project. Obviously, things have changed a lot since. And I think today there's a lot of initiatives trying to crowdfund science research. So we learned from these examples, and I won't get into too much details, but we've been talking to a lot of people crowdfunding science around the world, and we try to bring the best to Switzerland. So what kind of science do we want to crowdfund? This is the numbers from the Swiss National Science Foundation. So I'm talking about Switzerland. We're interested in working on crowdfunding in Switzerland and for Switzerland, not so much about other countries, because there are initiatives in basically every country in Europe and in North America at least. So as you can see, there are very few small-scale projects. So the numbers on the x-axis are the grant size in thousands of Swiss francs. So as you can see, the majority oscillates between 200 and 500,000 Swiss francs. And at the same time, there are very few short-term projects. So again, numbers from the Swiss National Science Foundation. Grants there are meant for projects that run for a year, 2 years, or 3 years. And now they just changed their regulation, so it's going to be mostly 4 years. Now, what if you want to raise money for a small project that is going to run for a short time? And as it's been said before, backers expect results in a short period of time. Scientists expect you to wait as long as possible before you release any information. So, and on top of this, all the people who apply for this money are affiliated to an academic institution. And I personally think this is wrong. I'm involved in some citizen science initiatives, and I think there should be a way for people looking for small amount of money for a short period of time and not coming from academia to actually raise money. Now, why should we even think of crowdfunding science? And I think the question in the back there was very relevant earlier. For me, it's an experiment. It's an investigation in process. I don't know. We're trying to explore that as a way to sort of fill niche that are not currently filled by the traditional actors in science funding. But we can discuss later. But I think it's science, and at least in science in Switzerland, it's not about the money at all. We're spoiled here. We have way too much money for research. So what's in for the scientists? And I think for the scientists, the crowdfunding has really two roles. One is communication, and the second has to do with this proof of concept initiatives where if you can convince 1,000 people to give you 50 francs, maybe that's an argument to go to a funding agency or a private funder and say, I think this is important, not just because of me, but because of this crowd out there. So I think it's a stepping stone to argue and sell a research project. And if you're lucky enough, and that money is enough to get some preliminary data, it's also a way to collect initial information that your project is going to be interesting in the long run, because traditional funders, again, ask for sort of proof that it will work. If you have no clue, then it's really hard to kickstart. For the crowd, I think the other side of the coin is that you have this communication channel open. So unlike Swiss taxpayers who have, I don't know how much of their tax money going into Swiss research, in crowdfunding you can interact with the scientists, you can choose what project you want to contribute to, and you can ask for something back. And I think that's quite important. And I guess that's it here. I think, so as I said, it's been happening. I think scientists are aware, as much as the general population, that crowdfunding is there. It's been used in different contexts. I won't get into too much details, but it's happening. Now, I couldn't give this presentation without giving you a SDG example, or what I think would be an SDG example in crowdfunding. This was not on We Make It, it was on Kickstarter, so a much more famous platform, or much bigger. But it's just one example that I quite like, and I think it fits my expectations of the projects we should be having. So it's a citizen science project, meaning there are some scientists involved, but they wanted to involve the citizens as much as possible. It's taking place in a refugee camp in Lebanon, so it has to do with SDGs, I guess, and also maybe not as favored population when it comes to access to science and technology. And what they did is they used these helium balloons to photograph the camp, the Burj al-Shamali camp in South Lebanon, to build a map of the camp that people could then use to build on the information. And this is the kind of pictures they were taking. And it's run by the people there, for the people there, and but the money came from all over the world through Kickstarter. So I'm going to have to talk about my initiative, obviously. We launched a couple of months ago, so it's now open for projects. We haven't had any launch yet, but we will probably in January. And the mechanism we used to sort of motivate the scientists to apply and to get engaged was to raise funding ourselves. So we raised this 225,000, and we're planning to match the successful campaign. So we don't want to help people raise money. We want to sort of reward them for successfully raising money, if you wish. So I'm going to stop here with the presentation, but I have just 3 points that I want to stress. Actually, two, because I talked about the luxury of being a researcher in Switzerland and not having trouble finding money. This is, again, not applicable in different countries. So there are crowdfunding platforms elsewhere that help researchers who either couldn't get any money or couldn't get any money for a specific topic raise funding to get projects started. I don't think Switzerland has this kind of problem. Now, for the relevance question, there are worries, I think. I myself work as a scientific advisor to the Swiss National Science Foundation, so I know from the inside that people see risks in that. You know, what if then citizens say, why are we even paying the Swiss National Science Foundation for what they do, because we could choose ourselves? You know, I think this worry that, I mean, our friend talked about this worry that it would level the quality down because there wouldn't be experts choosing anymore is very much there. My argument is that we're not planning to replace traditional funding. We're talking at a scale that is probably 0.01% of the total science funding, but it would help those scientists who want to reach out to do so. And we are reward-based, so this is, I guess, answering your question. We want the scientists to figure out what they can give back to the backers, and not come up with, I'll tell you in 3 years, maybe send you a copy of the paper I'll publish. No, they have a month to raise the money. This is the We Make It model. It's all or nothing, so they have to reach their target to get the money. And then they need to communicate to the backers regularly on a weekly basis for how long they want. But we would suggest they do it for at least 6 months. Give them progress reports, talk to them, explain, answer questions. And I think if there's no physical reward, I think this interaction is a tangible reward. And you can imagine anything: lab visits, dinner with the scientists, whatever. Again, I don't think this is about the money here. It's about putting the responsibility to talk about science in the hands of scientists, and not detach them completely from the responsibility of spending people's money. So this is it.
Thank you very much, Luc.